John 3:16, verse. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son. Breakdown. This verse encapsulates the essence of Christian faith, God's love and the gift of salvation through Jesus. 2 Philippians 4:13. Verse. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Breakdown. Emphasizes reliance on Christ's strength to overcome challenges. 3 Jeremiah 29:11. Verse. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Breakdown. Highlights God's purpose and hope for each person's future. 4th Psalm 23:1 verse. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Breakdown. A metaphor for God's guidance and provision in our lives. 5th Romans 8:28. Verse. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. Breakdown. Assurance that God orchestrates life events for the good of believers.
All right, so today we're going deep. We're diving into 5 verses you've probably heard a million times.
Oh, yeah, the classics.
But this time, we're not just skimming the surface. This is a deep dive.
Yeah.
We're going beyond the well-worn path, you know. We're going to look for some hidden depths.
I love that.
Yeah. So, are you ready? You ready to explore these verses with me?
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited. These verses are like, they just, there's so many layers to uncover.
Totally. Let's kick things off with a really famous one. I'm talking about John 3:16.
Mm-hmm.
For God so loved the world.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard it 1,000 times. I've heard it 1,000 times. It's everywhere. But, something I've always kind of wondered about is, back when this was written, what did the world even mean to them? Like, their world was a lot smaller than our world, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And, in their world, in Jewish thought at that time, the world was often, specifically referring to the Jewish people.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so for this verse to say that God loved the entire world, not just the world as they knew it, but everything,
Yeah.
it was a really radical statement.
Oh, wow. That totally changes things. So this verse, it's not just about the fact that God loves everyone. It's also about this massive shift in perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it really blew open the doors, God's love isn't limited. It doesn't just extend to one group. It goes out to everyone, to all of humanity. It's a really powerful message.
That's powerful stuff. And then, there's the second part of the verse, the part about God giving his one and only Son. It's not just like, hey, I'm sending my kid over to help out. It feels so much deeper.
Oh, for sure. That's the whole idea of sacrifice, right?
Right.
By giving his Son, God is giving something of infinite value. And it's not just about the what, it's about the why. It's a demonstration of this immeasurable love.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And, thinking about this idea of strength and sacrifice, it kind of leads us to another verse that a lot of people lean on, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Yeah, a real classic.
Classic, inspiring, right. But I've also heard people use it to justify some pretty wild stuff,
Oh, totally. Taken out of context, it can be really easy to twist that verse into a prosperity gospel mess. You know what I mean? Anything is possible as long as you just believe hard enough.
Right.
But when you look at the context, Paul is writing this from prison.
Oh, yeah.
He's not sitting in some, a fancy villa. He's in prison. So he's not talking about achieving some kind of worldly success here. He's talking about enduring, finding the strength to face your suffering and remain faithful, even when things are really, really rough.
Okay, so it's less about outward strength, like bench pressing a car, and more about inner resilience. That makes a lot more sense.
Exactly, yeah.
I feel like that's a perfect bridge to our next verse, actually.
Okay.
Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you. It's one that a lot of people find a lot of comfort in, that the idea that things are going to work out, there's a plan.
Yeah.
But honestly, for me, the idea of a preset path always felt kind of, restrictive.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And, it's not really about a set path. It's more like an intention.
Right.
Think of it like an architect. They have this vision for a building, but they know that they might need to make some adjustments along the way. They have to be flexible. The plans in Jeremiah 29:11, they're pointing towards a future that's filled with hope and purpose.
Yeah.
A future that's good, even if the road to get there is kind of, I don't know, bumpy.
Right, yeah. It's the journey, not the destination.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. And speaking of guidance and journeys, I want to move on to Psalm 23.1, which is, "The Lord is my shepherd." I mean, such a simple image, but so comforting, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
I mean, who doesn't want a shepherd guiding them through life?
Right.
I mean, think about it. Shepherds, they're fiercely protective of their sheep. They're always on the lookout for danger, and they're always leading their sheep to where they can find the best food and water. So it's this beautiful picture of God's care for us, even when we feel lost or alone.
Yeah, it makes you feel safe. It makes you feel like you can trust in something bigger than yourself,
Right. It invites us to let go of control and trust in God's guidance.
which is a good thing to remember when life throws you a curveball, when you hit those thorny patches. And that kind of brings us to our last verse for today. This is Romans 8:28. It says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good." I'll be honest, I struggle with this one sometimes. Like, what about when really bad things happen? What about real suffering? How can that possibly be part of some greater good?
That's a really tough question. And, this verse isn't saying that bad things don't happen. It's not saying that pain isn't real. What it is saying is that even within those really difficult experiences, even in the midst of suffering, something good can emerge. Like, think about a seed. It has to be buried in the darkness of the soil before it can sprout and grow.
Oh, I like that. So it's not about denying the pain, but rather like looking for the growth within it.
Exactly. It's about shifting our perspective. It's about recognizing that even brokenness, even pain, can be a catalyst for transformation. It's an invitation to look for the good, even when it's really hard to see.
Wow. Okay. That is pretty profound. We've covered a lot of ground today. We started with this really radical idea of God's love extending to the whole world, and then we talked about finding inner strength through faith.
And the hope for a good future.
Yes. And this incredible image of God as our shepherd,
Yeah.
guiding us through the ups and downs of life.
And even using those ups and downs to help us grow and transform.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to think that all of these ideas, all this wisdom, it's all packed into these 5 verses, just 5 little verses.
It really is. And it's a reminder, I think, that the Bible isn't just a book of rules or stories, but it's an invitation to a relationship with God, but also a journey of self-discovery.
And these 5 verses, I mean, they're just the tip of the iceberg.
They're a starting point.
Yeah, and there's a whole universe of wisdom waiting to be discovered in these verses.
Exactly. And I think the coolest part is that each person, they're going to find their own meaning in them.
That's so true. I think that's a great place to leave it for today. So, listener, wherever you are, think about these verses, read them again, really sit with them and see what they mean to you. I think you might be surprised at what you discover.
I agree. It's worth taking the time.
All right, well, that's it for our deep dive today. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep searching for those hidden depths.
Absolutely.
See ya.
Bye.